Greetings. This is Dr. Dan's Preacher Man again. I'm going to continue in my series on marriage preparation for those that are seeking a mate. Last time we discussed getting to know yourself. And I also mentioned getting into the Word, the Bible, and also the Book of Proverbs in particular. Today I'm going to go to Proverbs, and I'm going to pick up in chapter 31, where a mother is giving advice to her son. And she tells him, "Who can find a virtuous woman? For her price is far above rubies." That's verse 10 of chapter 31. And then continues, "The heart of her husband doth safely trust in her, so that he shall have no need of spoil. She will do him good and not evil all the days of her life." So here is a mother giving her son advice on what to look for in a woman. And she lays out the case that it should be the right person is compared to rubies, a very precious gem, a scarce gem, a rare gem, if you think about it. So that speaks to the person that's going to complement you. It's got to be that rare find, more precious than a ruby. And so this is advice from a mother, an elder, okay? One thing about the Book of Proverbs is written from that perspective. In fact, in the Book of Proverbs, in chapter 1, the verse 1, the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Israel. So we get the author. To know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding. This is the goal that he's laying out. And he's writing this primarily to his sons, to prepare them to be men of integrity and honesty as they would serve the nation of Israel. And he continues in verse 7 of chapter 1, "The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge." Okay, that's critical. So everything starts with the Word of God. And I mentioned that last week, I mentioned it again. So the Word of God is crucial to helping a person understand who they are, and also grants them wisdom and knowledge and instruction to find that right person. Who can find that virtuous woman? Or for women, who can find that virtuous man? Verse 8, "My son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother." I like that. We in the United States tend to avoid the advice of elders. We tend to reject authority. And that's to our shame. Certainly in other cultures, elders are respected and elders are listened to. And in fact, in most of history, marriages were so important that parents were involved in the selection of a husband or a wife for their child. And we look from our perspective in the 21st century like, oh, golly, gee, my mom doesn't know that, and they might choose someone that's terrible for me and all that. But you got to realize, who knows you better than yourself? Who raised you? Who knows your inclinations? Who has observed you when you weren't looking? Who knows your temperament? Your parents. And a lot of times they also know the temperament of the children in the neighborhood, especially once upon a time when people practically lived on top of each other, lived in these small villages, and people got to know each other, and they got to know each other's kids, and they were all interacting, and you had like several families that were together there. They pretty much knew who would make a good pair, a good husband and wife, a good marriage. And maybe initially when a couple were kind of felt, oh man, it's a shotgun wedding, we're going to have to do this, we're going to have to get married. But after a few years, they realized, Mom and Dad were right. We are good for each other. And you say, well, what about falling in love? Love's there. Love is going to be there. I suspect that the children were also heard when their adult children were talking to their parents, because they know themselves too. So, and you got to also realize that it was acceptable in a lot of those cultures to have a matchmaker Maybe it was mom, maybe it was aunt, maybe it was a grandparent that you would listen to who would help you in that, in guiding you. And I know as a child growing up, there was times when I didn't listen to my parents. I thought my parents weren't cool. I thought they weren't with it. But it's funny, in one neighborhood I lived in, it was when I was going to high school, Mr. Sanders was the person we all went to. For some reason, he seemed to have the right answers. He was saying the same thing as my mom and dad, but he said it in such a way that we accepted what he said. We figured he was really wise beyond his years, and he seemed to be cool and with it and all that stuff. But he was actually giving us the same thing our mom and dad were. And I wish there was a Mr. Sanders in every neighborhood that could help the young people out. Sometimes our parents are too close to the children. They're just too close to the fire. They can't feel the heat anymore, I think. Can't see the forest because of the trees. But, you know, wisdom from elders can help us avoid making a lot of mistakes. And they can see things in other people that we might have a desire to marry. But then, you know, if we were to listen to them, we'd say, well, you know, maybe there's something that Mr. Sanders said about Susie Q over there that, you know, he knows something about her family and whatnot and the character that maybe you ought to listen to him and avoid her. And he says good things about Linda over here that, you know, I never realized that about Linda. Maybe I ought to check things out. One thing about the Book of Proverbs is it's about character development if you study it, and it's about integrity and honesty. And here's the thing. When I go back to chapter 31, who can find a virtuous woman? And it describes a virtuous woman. I call her the Proverbs 31 woman. A lot of people do. She's a woman of character who's a good steward, and she's a good team player. Her husband delegates a lot to her. And that's probably because she's a Proverbs woman. But for you to find a virtuous woman, a man has to be a Proverbs man. See what I'm getting at? If you become a man of character and integrity and honesty, it'll be a lot easier to find that virtuous woman because she's going to be attracted to a man of integrity and honesty and care and so on. All the things that are mentioned in the Book of Proverbs. The Book of Proverbs is an easy book to study. There's 31 chapters, so if you read a chapter a day for a month, and if you say, well, some months are short, then on the last day of the month, you read 2 chapters or 3 chapters or whatever on the last day of February. But you get in the process of studying. This is what I used to do, by the way. I would read a chapter a day. Do it throughout. I did it for years, and I would keep a little journal. And not only would I read it, but I would actually start doing that. So in developing yourself to find that virtuous woman or that virtuous man, you have to become virtuous. And the Book of Proverbs is certainly an excellent tool to begin that journey to laying a solid foundation in a relationship we call holy matrimony. I hope this helps. Take care, and God bless.